Ethan used to believe that indifference was easy to recognize. If someone didn't care about you, they ignored you. They forgot your birthday. They didn't ask about your day. They rarely looked your way. Simple, clear, obvious. At least, that's what he thought. Then he met Sophia. She joined the company as a graphic designer. Professional, confident, calm. She treated everyone with respect. She wasn't loud. She wasn't shy. She simply carried herself with quiet confidence. Their first conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. It was about a project deadline. Nothing personal, nothing memorable. Yet over the next few weeks, Ethan noticed something strange. Whenever he entered the room, Sophia barely looked at him. If he greeted her, she'd smile politely and return to her work. She never started conversations. She never asked personal questions. She always seemed distant. His coworkers often joked together during lunch. Sophia laughed with everyone, but with Ethan, she kept a certain distance. One afternoon, his friend Daniel noticed him staring across the office. "You've been watching her for weeks." Ethan laughed. "Have I?" "Yes. So, I can't figure her out." Daniel looked toward Sophia. "What makes you think she's different?" Ethan shrugged. "She acts like I don't matter." Daniel smiled. "Sometimes that's exactly how people behave when someone matters too much." Ethan frowned. "That doesn't make sense." "It will." A few days later, the office celebrated a teammate's birthday. Everyone gathered around a large table. Music played softly. People laughed while sharing stories. Sophia was talking comfortably with several coworkers. Then Ethan walked into the room. For a split second, she stopped talking. Not long enough for anyone else to notice. Just long enough for Ethan to see it. She quickly continued the conversation as if nothing had happened. Daniel quietly leaned closer. "Did you catch that?" "What?" "She noticed you before anyone else did." Ethan wasn't convinced. Maybe. But something about that tiny pause stayed in his mind. Later that afternoon, Ethan accidentally left his notebook in the meeting room. When he returned to collect it, he found Sophia placing it neatly on the table. "Oh, this is yours." "Thanks." She nodded. "I figured you'd come back for it." Then she immediately walked away. It was a small moment. Yet it didn't feel cold. It felt careful, almost as if she wanted to help without making it obvious. Weeks passed. The same confusing pattern continued. Whenever Ethan tried to talk longer than a minute, Sophia politely ended the conversation. Whenever he stopped trying, she somehow found small reasons to appear nearby. One morning she asked, "Do you know where the blue folders are?" The office had dozens of people she could have asked. Instead, she asked Ethan. Another day she walked past his desk. "I think your coffee is getting cold." Then continued walking before he could answer. Tiny conversations, tiny excuses, nothing meaningful by themselves, but together, they formed a pattern. One evening Ethan finally asked Daniel, "If she likes talking to me, why does she always act so distant?" Daniel smiled. "Because pretending not to care is easier than admitting you do." Ethan remained silent. Daniel continued, "Some people protect themselves by acting emotionally unavailable." "Why?" "Because if nobody knows they care, nobody can hurt them." Those words explained more than Ethan expected. The following Friday, the company organized a volunteer event. Everyone worked together packing donation boxes. Sophia and Ethan ended up standing side by side. For nearly an hour they worked. Quietly, occasionally exchanging simple comments. At one point Ethan accidentally dropped several supplies onto the floor. Before anyone else reacted, Sophia immediately bent down to help. She didn't say much. She simply smiled softly. "You always carry too much." Ethan laughed. "You noticed." She froze for half a second. Then looked away. "I notice everyone's habits." The answer sounded reasonable, but something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. Almost defensive, as if she needed a quick explanation. Later that day, another coworker approached Ethan. "You and Sophia would probably make a good team." Ethan smiled awkwardly. He glanced toward Sophia. She heard the comment. Without saying a word, she immediately walked to the other side of the room. For the rest of the afternoon, she barely looked in his direction. That evening Ethan couldn't understand it. Why would someone avoid him immediately after others noticed their connection? Daniel answered before Ethan even finished explaining. Because reality suddenly became visible. What does that mean? She doesn't mind feeling something. She minds other people seeing it. People who hide their emotions often become uncomfortable when someone else points them out. Not because the feelings disappear. Because they suddenly become real. Monday morning arrived. Sophia entered the office carrying several design samples. She greeted everyone. When she reached Ethan's desk, she hesitated. For a second, it looked as though she wanted to say something. Instead she simply nodded. Morning. Then continued walking. Ethan watched her disappear into the next room. He had never met someone whose actions and words seemed to tell two completely different stories. One created distance. The other quietly searched for connection. A week later the marketing department organized a brainstorming session. Ideas filled the whiteboard. People debated different concepts. Sophia rarely interrupted anyone, until Ethan shared one suggestion. Without hesitation she smiled. I actually like that idea. Several coworkers agreed. It was the first time she openly supported him in front of everyone. Ethan thanked her. For a brief moment, their eyes met. She smiled again, then quickly looked back at the presentation screen, as if reminding herself not to stay in that moment too long. That afternoon Ethan realized something important. Maybe he had been asking the wrong question all along. Instead of asking, "Why does she act like I don't matter?" maybe he should have been asking, "Why does someone who pretends not to care keep finding reasons to stay connected?" That question changed the way he saw every interaction. Because sometimes, distance isn't created by the absence of feelings. It's created by the fear of revealing them. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Daniel's words. Sometimes people pretend not to care because caring feels too risky. The more he thought about it, the more everything began to make sense. Sophia never chased his attention. But she never completely disappeared either. She always seemed close enough to notice him, yet far enough to protect herself. A few days later, Ethan arrived at work earlier than usual. The office was almost empty. Only Sophia was sitting by the window, quietly sketching ideas in her notebook. She didn't notice him at first. He walked toward the coffee machine. As he reached for a cup, he accidentally dropped a spoon. The small sound echoed through the room. Sophia looked up instantly. The serious expression on her face disappeared. A gentle smile appeared without effort. Then, almost immediately, she looked back down at her notebook, as if reminding herself not to react too warmly. Ethan noticed something important. Her first reaction was always honest. Her second reaction was controlled. That afternoon, the team attended an important client meeting. Everyone was nervous. The presentation lasted nearly an hour. When it finally ended, the client smiled. Excellent work. The room relaxed. People congratulated one another. As Ethan gathered his papers, Sophia quietly walked over. You explained that last section really well. Thank you. She smiled. I'm glad you were the one presenting. For a moment, it felt like she wanted to say something more. Instead, she simply walked away. Sometimes people reveal their feelings in unfinished sentences. Not because they have nothing to say. Because they're afraid of saying too much. Later that week, heavy rain covered the city. Most employees stayed inside until it slowed down. Sophia stood near the entrance watching the rain. Ethan walked beside her. Looks like we're trapped. She laughed softly. For a while, several quiet minutes passed. Neither seemed uncomfortable. Eventually Ethan asked, "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. "Do I ever make you uncomfortable?" Sophia looked surprised. "No. You sometimes seem distant." She remained silent, then smiled sadly. "It's not you." Before Ethan could ask another question, several coworkers walked outside. The conversation ended, but those 3 words stayed with him. "It's not you." The next morning, Chloe visited the office to meet Sophia for lunch. As they sat together, Chloe noticed Sophia staring absent-mindedly through the cafe window. "What are you thinking about?" Sophia smiled faintly. "Ethan, I guessed." Sophia sighed. "I don't understand myself." "What do you mean?" "I tell myself to stay emotionally distant. Then the moment he talks to me, I forget every promise I made to myself." Chloe looked at her carefully. "So why pretend?" Sophia looked down at her coffee. "Because pretending feels safer." "What are you protecting yourself from?" "Disappointment." Her voice became quieter. "I trusted someone once. I believed every word. And when everything ended, I promised myself I would never become emotionally vulnerable again. Chloe nodded slowly. So Ethan isn't the problem. No, my fear is. That afternoon, Ethan received an unexpected message. It was from Sophia. Good luck with your presentation tomorrow. I know you'll do great. It wasn't a long message. It wasn't romantic, but it was the first personal message she had ever sent. Ethan smiled. He replied simply, "Thank you. That means a lot." Several minutes passed. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, Sophia sent one sentence. "I'm glad." Nothing more. Yet Ethan could almost imagine her smiling while typing it. The following day, his presentation went perfectly. As everyone congratulated him, Ethan noticed Sophia standing quietly near the back of the room. She didn't push through the crowd. She didn't seek attention. She simply waited. Only after everyone else left did she approach him. "I knew you'd do well." "How?" She smiled. "Because you always prepare. You notice everything, don't you?" She laughed. "Maybe." Then she added softly, "More than I should." For the first time, she didn't hide behind another excuse. That evening Ethan walked her toward the parking lot. The air was cool. The streets were quiet. Halfway there, Sophia suddenly stopped walking. "Ethan, can I tell you something honestly?" "Always." She took a slow breath. "I've spent months pretending you didn't matter." Ethan stayed silent. "I thought if I acted distant, my feelings would disappear. They didn't. They only became stronger." She looked down. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to protect myself." Ethan smiled gently. "I think I understand now." "No," she whispered. "I don't think you do. When someone has been hurt before, sometimes the hardest person to trust isn't someone else. It's yourself." Tears filled her eyes. "I was afraid that if I admitted how much I cared, I'd lose control. I'd get hurt again." Ethan stepped a little closer. Not too close. Just enough for her to know she wasn't alone. "You don't have to pretend anymore." For the first time in months, Sophia smiled without holding anything back. It wasn't a perfect smile. It wasn't a dramatic movie moment. It was simply honest. And sometimes honesty is more beautiful than perfection. As they continued walking, Ethan realized something important. Someone pretending not to care doesn't always mean they have no feelings. Sometimes it means they're carrying fears you cannot see. Of course, pretending to be distant doesn't always mean romantic interest. Some people are simply reserved. Some are naturally independent. That's why you should never assume someone's feelings based on one action. Instead, look for consistent patterns. Do they remember the little things you say? Do they quietly support you when nobody is watching? Do they find small reasons to stay connected? Do they become nervous when emotions become personal? Do they keep returning, even after creating distance? One sign proves nothing, but when many quiet signs appear together over time, they often reveal a truth words have been trying to hide. Because sometimes, the person acting like you don't matter may be the one who's trying hardest to convince themselves that you do not matter. While deep inside, they're hoping you'll never stop caring.